Welcome back, everybody. Today's topic is the Small Estate Affidavit. This is a probate alternative in the state of Texas that is available for, drumroll please, estates that are small, they're below a certain amount, where the costs of a more fulsome probate court proceeding don't necessarily make sense. As always, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead, give a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Like I said, today's topic is the Small Estate Affidavit. What we're going to do is we're going to flip through page by page the Small Estate Affidavit form for Bexar County, and your county may have one that's a little bit different. If you're in Bexar County, you're in luck because you're going to use exactly this form, at least until they change it. But if you're in another county, you may have a form that's somewhat similar. We're going to go through it page by page with some made-up names that are in some cases totally ridiculous and give you hopefully some insight on how you can fill out that Small Estate Affidavit. A brief disclaimer, this is not legal advice. You should consult your attorney as to whether you are eligible for the Small Estate Affidavit. I encourage you to read the section of the Texas Estates Code having to do with Small Estate Affidavits to ensure that you're compliant. And also, every situation is different. There's always exceptions. This is just an example of how to fill out the form in one hypothetical case containing my totally made up names and figures. So here's how we're going to start. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to Google or your other search engine of choice, type in Bexar County Small Estate Affidavit. Never mind my bad spelling. We're going to go ahead and click search and look at the various results that come up. You want to make sure that the one that you're clicking comes from a .org, the appropriate county website. Then for Bexar County, at least, it's an 11-page document. It has a nice official cover page. You want to flip through it real quick, get a sense for what you're going to be asked to fill out. Like I said, this one's 11 pages. Now, the first thing that we're going to do here when we're going to go through and fill out this PDF, we're going to skip that cover page. Of course, read it on your own time. The case number at the top, we're going to leave blank, and the court will fill that in. Likewise, where it says in the probate court number blank, we're going to leave that blank. In the estate of blank deceased, we're going to type in the name of the deceased. In this case, we're going to use the ridiculous name dead person McDead person. Notice that it automatically fills out that next blank. The decedent, dead person, McDead person, died on the blank day of blank 2000 blank. Here we're going to use the first day of January 2021. And since we're in Bexar County, we're going to say that Mr. McDead person died in Bexar County. We're also going to say that he was a resident and domiciled in Bexar County. If you don't know what domicile is, it's a legal term. Talk to your lawyer. Again, notice the part that I'm highlighting here. If the decedent was not a Bexar County resident and domicile, then the affidavit has to include facts that support why the court in Bexar County should hear it, and review D through G, make sure that those are all true. And we're going to get to the Medicaid box. You notice I'm playing around with these three. This has to do with the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program, whether the decedent received Medicaid dollars, and whether the decedent is going to have to pay those back. You're going to check the appropriate box, and we're going to go to the next page where we have the description of assets. We're going to start by listing the house of the decedent. Let's suppose that this person had a house. Maybe he didn't, but for the purposes of this hypothetical, he did. And the house's address is 123 Main Street, San Antonio, Texas. Again, I have no idea if there's really a 123 Main Street. There probably is. We're just making it up. You're also going to have to list the legal description of the house. And here I don't feel like stalking somebody on BCAD, so we're just going to leave some blanks for what the legal description should be. What you can do to fill that in is you can go on to bcad.org, but for now we're just gonna put brackets that say go look at BCAD. Now, the next thing that we're going to have to do for each one of these assets is we're going to have to list a dollar value for each one of the assets. And notice it says for each asset, list the value of decedent's interest. We're going to get to talking a little bit more about that in a second. The court will also reject your affidavit if you say unknown. Here we're typing additional information, community property, and we're going to say it's community exempt since it's a homestead. You have to provide details to the court demonstrating why it is community property and demonstrating why it's exempt. In this case, we're going to say it's community property because it was acquired on month, day, year after the decedent's marriage to Spousey McSpouseface. I know my names are great. On month, day, year. We're also going to point out to the court that it is exempt property based on the Texas Estates Code, and you can look up the citation. We're not going to do it right here, but a homestead is exempt from the $75,000 cap. So we're going to go up here to the top, and we're going to say that this is community exempt property. It can be community exempt, it can be community non-exempt, it can be separate exempt, and it can be separate non-exempt. Now we're going to go and fill in a few more assets. Again, this is where you would go through the decedent's list of assets and list whatever you're going to list. The next asset that Mr. McDeadpersonface had is a bank account made up of Bank of Bank NA here. We're going to say that he had $5 in the account. And then for additional information, let's say that this one is separate non-exempt property. Now we're going to have to justify why it's separate property. And we're going to say that he acquired it on month, day, year before his marriage to Spousey McSpouseface, which happened on month, day, year. Since we're saying that it's non-exempt, you don't necessarily have to state why it's non-exempt. You could if you want to. You could go cite the Estates Code. The next asset that we're going to include here is a car. We're going to say there's a vehicle, and the type of vehicle is going to be a 1999. What kind of car should we use? Party like it's 1999, but let's say it's a creepy van, 1999 creepy van. Now you're going to have to enter as much information about these assets as you reasonably can. The year, make, and model. So creepy van is going to be the make of this vehicle, and the model is going to be Creepy Van Co. Company. So this could be any make and model that you want to pick out. And what's a 1999 creepy van worth? What do y'all guys think? We'll say $10,000. How about that? And this one we're going to say that it's community non-exempt property. Again, this is the community versus separate distinction is going to have to do with when the property was acquired versus when the marriage to spouse occurred. We'll fix a typo there real quick. If we can just copy paste from the house. And you would, of course, this doesn't have to be changed because we've just done M/D/Y, but you'd have to point in the actual, you'd have to type in the actual month, day, and year. And I guess it's unlikely that the house and the car were acquired on the same date. Now you'd go through and list each individual piece of property of any kind of reasonable value that the decedent had. I don't really feel like making up a bunch of other ridiculous examples, so we're just going to put property number 4 and property number 5 here, and we're going to modify this description that we typed in to actually be compliant with what's required under the Small Estate Affidavit. And I got in a little bit of a hurry when I was typing things in here. For a bank account, you need to provide the last 4 digits of the account number, as well as the name of the bank, the type of the account. Then for the car, the vehicle, you're required to include a description as well as the VIN number. So color of the car, number of miles, VIN number, any distinguishing characteristics, etc. And again, the total of non-exempt property must be not more than $75,000. So you'll note that even though the house is valued at $5 million, that's going to be exempt. And if you're not sure exactly what the value of one of these items is, you can type in approximately blank. And as long as you have kind of good faith best guess, then approximately will usually work. If you know the exact value down to the dollar, right? So here I've typed in that the value is $17,123, exactly down to the last dollar. If you know the exact value, that's wonderful. Great. Go ahead, type it in. If you don't know the exact value, you can just say approximately. Again, be sure to read the instructions on this very carefully and provide exactly the information that the form calls for. Now we're going to move on from the list of properties, and we're going to hit section J on page 3 of the Small Estate Affidavit, which is the description of liabilities and debts. Now you'll notice the instructions here are a lot less detailed because debts are all going to be different. You want to list with enough detail to identify the creditor and any account. So for example, if debtor had more than one account with the same bank or more than one of the same type of credit card, you'll want to list both of those separately and include identifying information. You as well will want to include the balance due on each one of the debts. So here we've typed in capital 2 credit card ending in lucky 7777, approximately $500 balance. And again, the same thing as is true with assets is true with debts, where if you're not sure exactly the number, if you're not sure exactly 100% the amount down to the penny, you can put approximately, just use your best faith good estimate. We've also listed a student loan here with the Department of Education. I was originally going to put, millions of dollars, but we have listed an exact number because we have a statement from dead person McDeadface and we know exactly what the amount is, so we're going to list it exactly. And this also includes things that you would not think of as quote unquote traditional debt. So maybe instead of a credit card bill or a loan, it's also going to include something like an outstanding medical bill to the hospital, right? Very common when someone gets older and has to get medical treatment and can't afford it, or doesn't finish paying all the bills before they pass. Those bills are going to be considered as debts against the estate. So if there's something like that and there's not an account number or an invoice number or something like that, you may want to include the address of the creditor that is the holder of that debt. So the next section here is we're going to talk about family history, the decedent's marital history. So the checkbox here is whether the decedent was married or not at the time of death. And here we're going to list the decedent's spouse as Spousey McSpouseface and say they were married on MDY. Again, you would fill in the actual month, date, and year. The next box is family history part 2. This is children. And you, again, have 2 checkboxes here. The first checkbox is the decedent had no children by birth or adoption, did not take any children into his or her home to raise as a child, or in the alternative, the decedent did have children either by birth or adoption, or by taking into his or her home and raising as a child. And if so, you're going to list those children here. So in this case, we have listed Sonny McSunface. I know, again, my naming conventions are wonderful. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to put a comment down below if you have a better idea for a name for the next video. And month, day, year on the date of birth. Then you're also going to list the name of the child's other parent. Then we have Daughtery McDaughterface, whose birth date is not exactly known, but we know approximately the birth date of Daughtery McDaughterface. So we're going to put on or about month/year if we roughly know what the date is. Again, get as close as you can. Fill in with the best information that you have, and the court will tell you if they need more. Now, the name of the child's other parent, let's say in this case, Daughtery McDaughterface was the child of a different woman. That would be Mistress McMistressface. Again, I know my names are great. So we're going to go down to family history part 3, and this is more information on children. So in the event that one of the children of the deceased died before the deceased, then you're going to list any grandchildren that are from that child who predeceased. So in this case, we're going to list one grandchild. Next, family history number 4 has to do with the parents of the decedent. And you can either check the decedent was survived by both parents. If so, you're going to list them. Or the decedent was survived by only one parent, but not the other. In the event that the other parent is deceased, but the one is alive, you're going to be asked to provide the death date of the deceased parent, or the third checkbox is that both of the decedent's parents died before the decedent's death. That's what we're going to go with here because generally that's what happens. That's the most common option. Family history number 5, you can note that the following information about decedent's sisters and brothers is not needed if decedent was survived by both parents or by children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren. Now, if you're going to skip any of these boxes, it's usually a good idea to type in something like skipped as per instructions or NA, not applicable, whatever. Now, we get to the next chart, the big one, family history number 6. This is where we're going to list all of the legal heirs of the decedent, which in this case will include spousey McSpouse face, it will include son McSon face, and grandson McGrandson face, because daughter McDaughter face, predeceased, so daughter share goes to grandson. So note in the instructions, again, this is going to be a common theme in this video, that for the small estate affidavit, you need to read the instructions and follow them very carefully. For each distributee here, the form requests that you list name, address, telephone number, and email address, right? Which is a little bit unusual for a legal form. Courts are a little bit old-fashioned. They don't always... they're not always up to the newest, coolest thing. I know email's, 20 years old at this point, but court records don't necessarily always include email. This one does. So you're going to have to include the share of separate and community, personal and real property that all of these heirs are going to have. In this case, we're not going to fill it out. You need to consult the Texas Estates Code or talk to your attorney about what the shares should be for the individual heirs here. Again, you have to list everybody, even if there is, for example, no separate real property. You're still required to list the share of separate real property that would go to that heir. Now, the distributees of the estate, and distributee is just a fancy word for somebody that gets something under the estate, all the distributees are going to have to fill out this affidavit saying that everything in the small estate affidavit is true to the best of their knowledge. And it's going to say they have personal knowledge of all the facts therein, and everything is true and correct, and nothing is left out, etc., etc. And then it's going to have to be notarized in front of a notary public, and fill in the state and county where it's being notarized. You don't necessarily have to be in Texas as long as you can get a notary to sign it. You will also notice that on this particular page, page 7, there are only 2 spots. So what happens if, for example, in this case, we have 3 distributees, or if in another hypothetical scenario, maybe you have 4 or 5 distributees, well, what do? Send it off to have those 2 people sign this affidavit, then delete all the information and fill it out for your 3rd and 4th, print that out, send it off to them, then delete the 3rd and 4th, fill in 5th and 6th, send it to them to sign, so on and so forth. So you would essentially be attaching multiple copies of page 7. You need every single distributee to sign the small estate affidavit in front of a notary and return it in order for the court to process your small estate affidavit. If you're missing somebody, they won't do it. In addition to the notarized signatures of all of the distributees under the chart that you filled out above, you also are required to get 2 disinterested witnesses who have personal knowledge of the estate and of the affairs of the deceased, and who will sign something that says all of the stuff in that application is true. What does disinterested mean? Under Texas estate law, it just means you're not getting something. That could change in the future, but for right now, it means disinterested means you're not getting stuff under the estate. So you get 2 disinterested witnesses, get them to sign, notarize, and then at the bottom, you'll notice you have a blank for prepared in the law offices of blank. This is where if an attorney prepares this for you, they would fill in their name in that blank. So then the next page, you'll get to the order regarding small estate affidavit. So certain parts of this you're going to want to leave blank for the court to fill in, but you're going to want to fill in the errors, including specifically the blank where it requires that minor errors be identified. Now in this other place, you're going to list the adult errors, and then in the blanks following, you're going to list the minor errors. Then you're going to leave the signed on date blank and the judge presiding blank for the probate judge to fill out. Once you've done all of that, you're going to take your form, submit it to the probate court with your filing fees. The clerk should be able to tell you what that is, and you're done. As always, guys, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Drop a like if you're enjoying the videos, subscribe to the channel, give me a comment or an email if there's another topic that you want to see, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.